then about discipline. Where do you stand on it, especially when it comes to parenting? A new study says basically you shouldn't go too far because if you're a very strict parent, your child might be more susceptible to depression. This was based on a study around kids aged between 12 and 16. And it's basically saying that, you know, if you're really strict, you can potentially rewire the DNA of your kid, cause them problems later on down the line. James Woodhausen, rolling your eyes at this. Why?
Well, first of all, I always resist the idea that, you know, we are wired. That's a metaphor taken from the electronics industry. You know, you can't compare our brains with printed circuit boards. And the second thing is that this is a species of parental determinism or infant determinism, which suggests that everything a parent does in the early years of a child's life will determine their future fate. You know, therefore, it's not the government failing to offer apprenticeships or failing to educate them during lockdown or failing to educate them at all. No, it's all the fault of parents, you know, who've messed up their children for life, and we should all feel guilty about it. You know, somebody needs to get a grip here, Michelle. It's just not the case. To change the DNA, if I'm strict with you as a child, somehow I will change your DNA and you'll end up a depressive. You know, it's completely reductionist.
So why do so many people then have childhood trauma? So say like they've been abused or whatever. If you're saying basically that if you're strict or abusive or whatever towards your child, you don't rewire them, why is childhood trauma a thing then?
Because what parents do is generally not likely to create trauma. Obviously, there's some abusive parents, and that's very bad. And, you know, it used to be the strap and the cane, and now it's something else. But I don't favour it myself as a parent, but I can tell you if I had a 6-year-old child now who threw a Coke can on the street, I'd give them a cuff across the ears. I'm on the left. Yeah, definitely.
So hang on, if your kid littered... I've got a 2-year-old, not a 6-year-old. He took an empty pack of crisps on the floor the other day in a rage because it was the wrong pack of crisps that I had the audacity to give to him. I wouldn't hit him for that. I would pick them up and say, no, no.
Well, it depends, you know. Parents have the right, not the state, not, you know, therapists, but parents who are the parents of their children have the right to discipline them in a reasonable kind of way. And if you look at the litter on the streets and the cavalier attitude that young people have to it, and some oldies, then, you know, a quick correction is very definitely needed. So, you know, all this stuff about, oh, well, I say a cuff across the ears. We're not talking the strap. Do you think a cuff across the ears is going to traumatise somebody for life? Certainly not. You know, what isn't understood in all of this is that how we develop as adults isn't just a question of psychology or of DNA or stuff like that. It depends on the society we're brought up in. If the society is teaching us to be victims, then no doubt we're going to spend a lot of time in therapeutic establishments or going to Alcoholics Anonymous.
So I think it's safe to say you're having none of it. Martin, what do you think to it?
I think the fact we don't, on the whole, tend to beat our children anymore is, on the whole, a good thing.
Of course.
I'm struck by this survey. I wonder who defines strict, if it's entirely self-defined by the people answering it in the survey. I think that we have gradually become slightly more generous towards kids than when I was young. There was more of a culture of sort of, you know, don't get big-headed. You know, you don't want to praise a child or they'll get big-headed. I remember my mum holding back on praise in case I got big-headed.
Really?
So I obviously failed completely. But anyway, but on the other hand, I think there's sometimes we almost go further than we need to in the sense of trying to improve our children all the time. You know, there are parents who make sure that almost every waking hour of the child is involved in sort of improving activities, you know, playing the violin or, you know, going out to summer camp or doing baby yoga or whatever it might be. And I think sometimes we don't just allow kids just to hang out, muck around, be themselves, run around and play, get into trouble a little bit. So I'm not sure that the definition of strict necessarily makes much sense in this context.